Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Well, today we're doing the Rams update. Going to take a look at that team, see what they're all about. Before I get there, though, should probably talk about the Green Bay Packers injury report. Could be worse, not great. Davante Wyatt is out. I think that was more or less expected. Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs are both doubtful. Still don't know what's going on with Doubs. Probably won't know. It's something personal. It always sucks when you see that because you don't know what that means, and there have been, there are things that are serious. Of course it's serious. He could miss a game for something personal that's going on in his life, so of course it's serious. I don't know. I guess you just hope it's not too serious. As I'm sure we all are concerned, but hopefully he'll be all right. Sounds like he's probably not going to be in this game. Questionable: Jaire Alexander, Edgerrin Cooper, Jonathan Ford, Elton Jenkins, Jordan Morgan, Luke Musgrave, and Carrington Valentine. So we might be without two of our three top receivers and two cornerbacks again, which would be brutal. No real insights into Jaire Alexander. It's relatively positive. He's, again, questionable for the game. Matt LaFleur mentioned that Alexander was getting better. I don't know exactly what that means, but, we will see. Carrington Valentine dealing with an injury, ankle injury, also questionable for Sunday's game. I don't know. It's just, I'm just going off vibes here, but I feel like there's more optimism toward Valentine than Jaire. Could be way off on that. It's just based on the way that I guess people are talking about the conversation. But if neither can go, it'll look a lot like last week. If just Jaire can go, he just gets slotted right back into his spot. The only interesting thing happens is if they both come back, do we see Valentine take most of the snaps over Stokes? I don't know. It may just be a matchup thing. It may be a Valentine thing. I don't know, but we'll see. I hope that is a problem that the coaches have to figure out. What do we do with all of these players? The Rams, as we knew from the start, are going to be without Cooper Kupp. They're also not going to have defensive end Laurel Murchison, who has a forearm/foot injury. I don't think I've ever seen a forearm injury before. That's a new one. Returning will be cornerback Darius Williams. He is expected to return from his hamstring injury. So here we go. I like to believe that the Rams are in such bad shape and they're such a bad team that we'll be able to get by as long as Jordan's playing some good football. We still have Reed, who is probably our number one wide receiver right now. I don't know that that's super debatable. We still have Wicks, who I know had some issues, but that is a talented wide receiver. I really don't have any issues with that. On top of, Bo Melton and Hicks, who can contribute here and there. But anyways, why don't we start from the beginning? Take a look at the 2023 LA Rams just to kind of see where we came from. 10-7 last year under Sean McVay. Obviously not exactly the powerhouse that they have been, but still, hanging around. Their offensive coordinator is Mike LaFleur, who is Matt LaFleur's brother. He was last year as well. Raheem Morris was the defensive coordinator. Just looking at points, they ranked 8th on offense, 19th on defense. They actually started off really poorly, similar to what the Packers tend to do. They were 3-6 after losing to the Packers, went into their bye week, and then came out and won 7 of 8. They beat Seattle, beat Arizona, beat Cleveland, lost to the Ravens in a pretty close game in overtime, then beat the Commanders, beat the Saints, beat the Giants, and beat the 49ers. So they were on an absolute roll. Then go face Detroit and, I was going to say get their face smashed in, but they lost by 1 point. But, if you were a Rams fan, you look at that and you have some optimism, right? We kind of turned it up there at the end there, folks. Couple of blowouts, too. Beat Arizona 37-14, beat Cleveland 36-19. Couple good ones in there. Then as we get to the 2024 changes, one of the biggest ones, obviously, is the retirement of Aaron Donald. I mean, that guy was the heart and soul of this team, has been for a very long time. The level of talent that he brought, the level of, I hate to overuse the idea of somebody carrying a team, because I think that was misapplied to certain people like Rodgers. But, there is a level of, what is this defense without that guy? So you look at a team that's never really had good edge rushers, don't have good defensive tackles next to Donald, don't have good linebackers, occasionally did have some really good corners and safeties, but intermittently. But Aaron Donald took off, and quite a few changes. Their defensive line coach, Eric Hendrickson, took a new job. Raheem Morris, the Rams defensive coordinator since 2021, got hired away by the Atlanta Falcons as their head coach. Zach Robinson, who had spent the previous 5 seasons on the Rams coaching staff, most recently pass game coordinator and quarterbacks coach, went with Raheem Morris to the Falcons. Jimmy Lake, the Rams' assistant head coach, joined Morris in Atlanta. Atlanta just screwed the Rams. Thank you, Atlanta. You took Cousins out of Minnesota. You dismantled the Rams. I love you for that. I don't know why I dislike the Rams so much. We beat them pretty soundly. I just don't like them. Jeremy Springer, a special teams assistant for the Rams, went to the Patriots. Chris Shula, who was their pass rush coordinator and linebackers coach, did get the promotion as defensive coordinator, and they went and hired a bunch of guys to backfill and whatnot. We don't need to go through the entire list, but very heavy coaching turnover. One of the funniest is Sean Desai, hired by the Rams as a senior defensive assistant. That's the guy that completely destroyed the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles were a mess for a lot of reasons, but holy crap, that was a terrible defense under Desai. In free agency, they added Jonah Jackson, the guard from Detroit, Colby Parkinson, the tight end from Seattle, Darius Williams, cornerback from Jacksonville, Cameron Curl, the safety from Washington, Tre'Davious White, the corner from Buffalo, Jimmy Garoppolo, the Las Vegas Raiders quarterback, Boston Scott, safety from Philly, Jerry Jacobs, corner from Detroit, Carlos Watkins, Arizona defensive tackle, and Connor McDermott, tackle out of New England. Fast forward to the draft at pick 19, they take Jared Verse. Jared Verse has been a phenomenal pass rusher. Braden Fisk, defensive tackle, also out of Florida State. They got Blake Corum, who I was a fan of, running back out of Michigan. Cameron Kinchen, safety out of Miami. Brennan Jackson, another pass rusher. Tyler Davis, another defensive tackle. Josh Carty, a kicker. Jordan Whittington, wide receiver, who we're going to be hearing a lot about. Bo Limmer, the center, and KT Leviston, offensive tackle. Then we fast forward into 2024, and they're having some trouble kind of turning this thing around. Mike LaFleur and Sean McVay still working on the offense. Chris Shula, as I said, is the defensive coordinator. It's led them to 1-3. They lost in overtime to the Detroit Lions, 26-20. They lost to the Arizona Cardinals, 41-10. They lost to the San Francisco 49ers 27-24. They beat the 49ers 27-24. They lost to the Bears 24-18. Their offense, from a points perspective, ranks 23rd. Their defense, 31st. They're actually 31st in points and yards. The defense is by far their biggest issue. They have allowed, again, 26, 41, 24, and 24. And when 24 of those points do come to the Chicago Bears, that's a rough day at the office. If we flip it over to DVOA, add a little context to this, the Green Bay Packers overall rank 10th. And remember, that's 10th with all the problems on defense, with all the problems with our special teams, with the problems at quarterback, with all the penalties. They rank 10th. The Rams overall rank 26th. On offense, via DVOA, Green Bay ranks 3rd. LA Rams, not the worst, 16th. So they're dead average, but they're facing a top 3 offense. Then on defense, the Packers certainly not the best in football, but still 19th, so they're within the top 20, which is pretty unusual territory. The Rams rank 31st. So similar to their points and their yards, their DVOA also 31st. Their specific DVOA, just to quantify things, is 22.7. That is to say, what DVOA has done is they contextualize how good of a job you're doing compared to expectations based on your opponent. They're saying that teams' offenses are performing 22.7% better than standard. Now, it's hard to know definitively what standard is, but they do as good a job as anybody is trying to quantify how good a team is. To put that into perspective, and this is how the modeling works for a lot of the bets that I'm placing and whatnot. If the Packers average just 20 points, let's just say for the sake of easier math, they would be expected based on this to score about 25, 24 and a half-ish to be exact. Special teams is the only area where they have us beat because the Packers are ranked 28th, but that doesn't mean that they're very good. They're ranked 17th with a negative, 1 DVOA or something. Looking at some more team-level stats, offensive points per game, Green Bay ranks 7th with 26 points. So, I mean, let's just do some math here. I don't remember exactly what it's 22 point something percent, but based on the Rams DVOA, that would give the Packers an additional 5.8 points. So let's call it 6. So 32 points is sort of the expected score total based on the Packers' points and the Rams' defense or whatever, defensive DVOA. Anyways, the Rams rank 23rd with 18.8 points per game. Looking at yards per game, Green Bay is 3rd, 410 yards per game. The Rams are 19th, 312. Packers are number 2 in yards per play, 6.4. The Rams are 19th, 5.2. They like 19th. That's kind of their area. Touchdowns, the Packers are 11th. Rams are 23rd. They have 7. We have 10. Unfortunately, EPA per play is where the Packers really struggle, which is unfortunate because it just means there's not been a lot of production based on all the production. There's not been a lot of, actual value from the quality drives, but Packers still slightly ahead. EPA per play, Packers rank 16th, Rams 17th. Similarly, when you look at pass rates, the least pressured teams, from least to most, the Rams are 15th, the Packers are 16th. The Rams quarterbacks are under pressure, 31.9%, Packers 32.4%. Running backs with carries of 10-plus yards or more, the Packers rank 2nd with 21. The Rams rank 31st with just 5. Not a lot of explosive runs. Flipping over to team defense, as we already said, the Rams rank 31st. They are the second worst. They're giving up 28.8 points per game. Green Bay Packers defense ranks 18th, giving up 22.3. Rams are 31st in yards. Packers 19th, 339.8 yards per game for the Packers. If you look at EPA per play, the Packers are 10th. Again, a lot of high-value things. Even though the defense is kind of on the lower end, when you add in the picks, that's big. So overall, they still rank 10th in EPA per play. The Rams rank 32nd. Based on EPA, the Packers have a top 10 defense. The Rams are the worst defense in football. And when we get into some of the PFF stuff, looking at their actual players, you'll start to understand why maybe things are kind of rough right now. If you look at pass defense based on EPA, so EPA per pass play, the Rams, what's their favorite spot? Well, not 19th. What's the other one? 31st. Only Washington has a worse pass defense. Packers pass defense is 14th. And then looking at run defense, very surprisingly, Packers are actually top 4. They're tied for 4th best run defense. What is that based on? I really don't know. I don't know if there's a bunch of fumbles mixed in there or what exactly happened. But based on EPA, they have a negative 0.15. The Rams' run defense, especially without Aaron Donald, is 29th. I mean, it's a pretty stark contrast. The Packers have a decently better offense. It's not massive, but it's significant. It's noticeable. And that's with, the backup and an injured quarterback and like that version. We haven't even seen our full offense unveiled yet. The defense, shockingly different. The one thing that's really crazy, though, is the team that generates the most quarterback pressures is the Rams. And again, Jared Verse is out of freaking control when you look at some of his stats. It was funny, though. I just watched Gruden. Gruden's got his new thing on YouTube. It gives me anxiety watching him work on the whiteboard. He just fills up his whiteboard full of crap that nobody can understand. Only his mind can process it. It's so disorganized and chaotic. But anyways, he was talking about, he always tells his stories. Oh, when I was a kid, my dad coached football, and I used to listen to the radio, and there was this guy, whatever, and they talk about he's under pressure and it's complete a pass, and it's under pressure and it's complete a pass. He says, I don't want to hear about your frickin' pressures. We got to get the quarterback on the ground. I think a lot of fans feel that way. I have advocated for pressures and how important they are, but there is something to be said about, pressures are only so good. And I think this is an example of it. To have one of the worst pass defenses, one of the worst overall defenses in the entire NFL based on value, and to have the highest pressure rate in the entire NFL, 50 pressures, which I think it's not quite the top, but they, I guess, don't get a lot of opportunities. In fact, when you look at cumulative pressures, they are down at 11th. They're actually below the Packers. But as a pressure rate, because apparently their defense isn't on the field very much, I have no freaking idea. 41.3% pressure rate. But when you got nobody covering, and actually I want to see something real quick. I'm curious their blitz rate. They are, I don't see them at the top. I don't know. They're 28th. Packers are 31st. They just don't blitz. So the Rams don't either, which means they are getting home with just their standard front, which means their coverage is just that bad. That's shocking, but something to be worried about if you are the Packers. It's going to be a nice relief from the Minnesota Vikings, who have the second most blitz-happy defense in the entire NFL. So hopefully it'll take a little bit off our offensive line, a little bit off of Jordan. We'll see. Anyways, we'll leave it at that. None of this rest of this stuff isn't massively important. You get the idea. Why don't we take a break, come back, take a look specifically at their players, what they've been doing, trajectory, all that good stuff, and that's what we'll do. Take a break. We'll be right back. All right, why don't we start with the quarterback, Matthew Stafford. Definitely off to a really rough start. There has been some improvement, but it went from 2 bad games to 2 middling games. So far through 4 weeks, the grades, 52, 57, 70, 65. He has thrown 978 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but it's a lot worse than that. Just to give you an example, Aaron Rodgers is having one of the most Aaron Rodgers seasons ever. He has 7 big-time throws and 0 turnover-worthy plays. He has 1 pick, but apparently it wasn't his fault. Matt Stafford, in 4 weeks, has 2 big-time throws, 6 turnover-worthy plays. He has been lucky. In other words, 4 interceptions were dropped, 2 of them were caught. The ratio of big-time throw to turnover-worthy play is horrifying. Right now, and again, I think a lot of teams are going to start to turn things around. I don't know about the Rams. I always thought they were a little overhyped, so I'm skeptical. But I do think some things will probably improve, like Stafford. I don't know how much better he gets than this. Again, his 70 grade. But anyways, right now he has a 60.7 PFF grade. That is his worst PFF grade since 2009, which was his rookie year. He had a 45.2 grade. Since then, he's only had 3 years where he graded in the 60s. Only 3 since 2010. So we're talking 15 seasons. His big-time throw percentage is not only the lowest of his career so far, it's less than half of his lowest season. So his current lowest big-time throw season was 2009, so his rookie year where he was awful. It was 3.3%. Right now, he's at 1.4%. That is to say, roughly, out of 100 throws, 1 of them is a big-time throw. It's a little more than that. It's, 3 out of every 200 throws. So, yeah, it's great. On the flip side, as far as his turnover-worthy plays go, this is not his worst. He's at 3.9%. He had 2 seasons out of his 16-year career that were worse than that. 2012 was 4.0, so he's basically tied with his second worst year. And then, of course, 2009, where he was just god-awful. So aside from his rookie year where he was terrible, he's pretty much tied with his worst year ever. Right now, Matt Stafford is under pressure 34% of the time, which is not low. It's certainly not high. Just kind of right there in the middle. He has a almost 80 PFF grade when he's not under pressure. He is completing 76.6% of his passes, 83.5 adjusted completion percentage, for 729 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. He has 2 big-time throws, 2 turnover-worthy plays. While under pressure, Matt Stafford is completing 47.2% of his passes, that's 53% adjusted, for 249 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He has a 29 PFF grade while under pressure. 29. He has 0 big-time throws and 4 turnover-worthy plays. If we take a look at his receivers right now, his number one receiver, shockingly, Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp has only played 2 games. He is blowing everybody else out of the water as far as targets. He has 27 targets in 2 games. The next highest wide receiver is Demarcus Robinson, who has 17 targets in 4 games. But if we sort by how many routes they run, Demarcus Robinson is their number one wide receiver. 17 targets, 9 receptions, 161 yards, 0 touchdowns, 65 PFF grade. Then it's tight end Colby Parkinson, 18 targets, 12 receptions, 113 yards, no touchdowns, 65 PFF grade. Running back Kyron Williams, 14 targets, 13 receptions, 68 yards, and a touchdown. He does have a 72 grade, but just a 65 receiving grade. Then it's wide receiver Tyler Johnson, who has 10 receptions for 119 yards, 64 receiving grade. And for some freaking reason, Tutu Atwell, who is their highest graded receiver by a pretty decent margin, especially if you don't include Cooper Kupp in this, he has a 79 receiving grade, but has only run 67 routes, which is half of what Demarcus Robinson has run. Tutu Atwell, 11 receptions on 14 targets for 223 yards, which far eclipses anybody else. Tutu Atwell's their best wide receiver, and he's getting about half the amount of opportunities as the other wide receivers. In fact, he is wide receiver 1, 2, 3, 4, wide receiver 4, and behind Cooper Kupp. He has run less routes than Cooper Kupp did in 2 games. So there's that. Then their other guy that's actually graded well as a receiver is rookie wide receiver Jordan Whittington, who has a 71.4 grade, 11 receptions for 112 yards. He's only run 54 routes. Remember, the number one is Demarcus Robinson at 130. So there's that. Now, Tutu has been getting more snaps. Maybe they're starting to realize that he's kind of the guy, especially after what's his name went down. But it went from 4 to 10 to 24 to 29. Also worth noting, Jordan Whittington, who's 6'1", 204, and plays a decent amount on the slot, although that's gone down every single week. So I think they're getting away from that, which makes sense. They're not using him as a big slot. I mentioned he has a really solid receiving grade. It's worth noting, though, that's really just based on 1 game. So he didn't play week 1. Week 2, he had a 63 grade, then 74, then 68. So not trying to discount the 6'1", 204, 6th-round rookie out of Texas, but there's that. So I don't want to say it's the worst wide receiver group we've ever seen, but there is not a number one wide receiver on this team. The guy that is their best receiver is not their number one wide receiver. Maybe they'll use him more in this game now that they know what they have, along with maybe Whittington. I don't know. But, I mean, let's be honest. The real powerhouses on this team are Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, neither of which are going to be playing in this game. And again, Colby Parkinson is their top tight end. Colby Parkinson is not a very good tight end. He's 6'7", 251. He's a big dude. He's a 4th-round player in 2020. Again, he's just got a 63 receiving grade, 65 overall. Pass blocking grade is great, but it's not really the tight end's main job. I don't really care about looking at his run blocking. But as far as you got to watch out, this guy's a real threat. I mean, listen, there's no Justin Jefferson on this team. There just isn't. There's no A.J. Brown on this team. And then as far as running backs go, Kyren Williams is their guy. So he's had 73 rushing attempts. The number 2 guy is Ronnie Rivers, who's had 10 attempts. Blake Corum has only played in 1 game, had 8 attempts. Maybe we'll see more of him. I don't know. That was week 2. He just kind of randomly came out. But Kyren Williams is the guy. He's got a 71 grade, not the worst in the world, but it just hasn't been working. 73 attempts, 258 yards, just 3.5 yards per carry. He does have 5 touchdowns. I'm guessing these are goal line snipes. 2.32 yards after contact per attempt is nothing really magical. 8 missed tackles forced. I don't really know what that number should be through 4 games, but I know that isn't massively spectacular. Only 3 carries over 10 yards, no carries over 15 yards. The run game is not working. Now, I would hate to provoke the Packers' run defense here. Sort of a hold my beer situation where, Kyren kind of does some magical things. I wouldn't put it past our defense. They love, breaking records, in the worst possible way. But I'm just giving you the data, and the data says they have not been able to run the ball, period. Let's get into maybe some of the problems that they're having. Offensive line. First of all, they've had 4 left tackles through 4 games. 4 left tackles in 4 games. Week 1, it was Joe Noteboom. Joe Noteboom had a 7.2 pass blocking grade, and then he went down. They brought in A.J. Arcuri in week 1 after apparently he went down. What the heck are they doing? I don't know how this works. But they brought him in. He had a 1.9 pass blocking grade. He gave up 7 pressures. So there's that. Then they brought in a 3rd tackle in week 1, Warren McClendon. I don't know the exact order of this. I'm just going through it. He had a 33 pass blocking grade. He gave up 5 pressures. This feels fake. Is this fake that I'm looking at? Yeah, so that's what you had. And then Warren McClendon was their week 2 left tackle. He had a 64 run blocking grade and a 41 pass blocking grade. And then they brought in Alaric Jackson. And Alaric Jackson is going to be the man among men here. He's coming in week 3. He's going to take over against San Francisco. He has a 50 run blocking grade, 51 pass blocking grade. Not the greatest start. Week 4, he gets his feet under him a little bit. 91 run blocking grade and a 70 pass blocking grade. Much better effort for Mr. Jackson, who's never really been a good football player. So Alaric Jackson will be, I believe, the left tackle against the Green Bay Packers. Just to give you some hindsight here, his pass blocking grades, let's just do 2022 and 2023. He's really only a starter in 2023, but they're similar enough. 69 and 68 for pass blocking, run blocking 58, 59. Not a massive disaster, not a super great football player, but holy cow, what a revolving door. 3 tackles on week 1? 4 total left tackles that they've had. By the way, the left tackles have given up 10, 19, 23 pressures at left tackle combined. Alaric Jackson has given up 4 in 119 attempts. Warren McClendon in 52 attempts gave up 9 pressures. A.J. Arcuri in 51 attempts gave up 7 pressures, and Joe Noteboom in just 27 attempts gave up 3. Again, let me go through the pass blocking grades for the left tackles. 61, 34, 7.2, and 1.9. Jeez. It's not much better at left guard, and I'm serious about that. They've had 3 left guards in 4 games. Week 1, they had 2 left guards. Steve Avila, he was their left guard. He had a 40 pass blocking grade, played 37 snaps, gave up a sack and a hit. Then you had Jonah Jackson, who was from Detroit. He played, 41 snaps at left guard, 37 at center. How many freaking times did they throw the ball in this game week 1? Usually like 50, 60 is the max. I'm seeing like 50 for him, 30 for him. What, they throw it 100 times? It says he had 78 snaps in week 1. My goodness. It's a lot of offensive snaps. Anyways, 41 snaps at left guard, 37 at center, 47 pass blocking grade. And then in week 2, he was the lone guy. He did get a 75 pass blocking grade, Jonah Jackson did. but a 41 run blocking grade. But then in week 3, Logan Bruss takes over. Logan Bruss is a guy that you circle, double underline, exclamation point. Kenny, if you want a redemption game, for the love of God, this is it. There's been talk about Kenny has had a lot of success against the Rams, et cetera, et cetera. You went up against a pretty weak interior last week and couldn't do anything about it. It doesn't get weaker than Logan Bruss. 117 snaps in 2 games. Overall, he has a 23.3 pass blocking grade. His best was against San Francisco. He had a 31.6 pass blocking grade. We think we have problems with a kicker that misses a couple kicks. Look at this offensive line situation. 4 left tackles and 3 left guards that they've gone through. With, 3 or 4 that are grading in the 30s, 20s, 10s, and single digits as pass blocking grades. He's given up a sack, a hit, and a hurry. 3 total pressures so far. Then at center, we continue to get a little bit better. They've only had 2 centers, believe it or not, through this time. As we mentioned, Jonah Jackson was in the mix. We already went over his grades, but he was 37 snaps at center. I don't know if it was he had to sub at center or if he was the starting center and had to go to left guard. I don't have any idea, but he was not very good. Then in comes Bo Limmer. He's been their main center throughout this campaign. Another guy that is horrifyingly bad on the interior. He has given up 8 pressures already in his 4 games. He has a 60 run blocking grade and a 41.8 pass blocking grade. This is some of the worst pass blocking I've ever seen in my entire life for an offensive line as a group. Oh my goodness. Limmer, by the way, if his name sounds a little bit familiar, he is a rookie. He's a rookie 6th round pick. That's how bad things are getting. They have to play their rookie 6th round pick to be their starting center out of Arkansas. And, how his career will turn out, I don't know, but it ain't going great so far. His 4 weeks, his pass blocking grades have been 51, 35, 65, and 31. Wow. That's like Sean Ryan. If Sean Ryan never had good days, it's like alternating between really bad and really good, except in his case, it's alternating between really bad and kind of bad. Whew. That will be their starting center, by the way, Bo Limmer. And then finally, we get to right guards. We had 4 left tackles, 3 left guards, 2 centers, and finally, 1 right guard. Unfortunately, it starts to go the other way as you go to the right. Fortunately, it only goes 1 more to the right, or who knows how far, how many, right tackles they would have had. But Kevin Dotson has been holding down the spot over there, and he is maybe the most consistent, maybe one of the best players that they have, because he has a 54 pass blocking grade and a 59 run blocking grade. Good on him. He only gave up 7 pressures, which I'm being sarcastic. That's actually kind of a lot in these games so far. And then at right tackle, you got Warren McClendon, hilariously, who played over there for a little bit and was terrible. And then Rob Havenstein, who's been there for a long time. He hasn't really practiced all week because he's been on veteran rest all week. He is 32 years old and doing the best he can. He currently has a 75 pass blocking grade, 67 run blocking grade. It's the only thing they have going for him. Once he's gone, then they'll have 5 terrible offensive linemen. I guess Alaric Jackson isn't terrible, although he is on the injury report as well, so he's a little banged up. We'll see how that goes. But this is awful. Hold on a second. So how many different people have they had on the offensive line? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10... 10 offensive linemen that have played. Technically, Justin Dedich had 2 snaps, but we won't count that. 10 offensive linemen. There's only 5 spots. They've had 10 play so far. The team as a whole has given up 54 pressures. For context, the Packers have given up 30. Rasheed Walker has given up the most pressures on the team with 9, then Myers 6, and then Ryan 5. McClendon has 9 also, but that was in 2 games. Limmer has given up 8. Arcuri has given up 7. He's given up more than every single one of our offensive linemen except one. You know how many games he played? Less than 1. 51 snaps. It's almost a game worth. 7 pressures he gave up. He played a portion of a game. Dotson, 7. So again, outside of Rashid, who gave up 9, the highest for our team is 6. They have 4 players above that, including 2 players who have played less than 4. Arcuri played 1. McClendon played 2. Jeez. It's been a rough outing for this offensive line. But again, the real area to exploit is the interior. You've got Dotson with a 54 pass blocking grade, Limmer with a 42, and Bruss with a 23. If we don't get pressure on the interior, and I'm not talking about Halfley dial something up, don't dial up jack squat. I'm looking at our defensive tackles. I'm looking at Slayton, who apparently just wants to be a pass rusher. I don't get it. You're a big dude. You're supposed to be the nose, whatever. Fine, you're a pass rusher now. You're maybe our best pass rusher, which makes me want to freaking cry. But Slayton, go get him. Kenny, please, for the love of all things holy. Brooks, Wooden, whatever it is, whoever it is, please, with no help whatsoever, generate pressure against this. I mean, by all means, Halfley, once in a while you want to send a guy up the middle, you want to send the linebackers. It seems to work anyways, probably cause some chaos, be fun. I'm just saying on principle here, guys, if you can't win one-on-one against this, there's no hope. It was basically the case last week. They had a pretty rough interior. Come on, guys. Please, I need it. I tell you what, I think it's going to happen, but I just am not going to be thrilled if it doesn't. By the way, I just saw this before we take a break as I was kind of poking around PFF and looking at their stuff. It says, introducing in-game grading. Track PFF data as the action unfolds. I don't know how this is exactly going to work, but apparently during the game, because you know how after the game I'll tell you like their grades and all that kind of stuff. Apparently you're going to be able to see the in-game grading. Now, it's not going to be their final grades or whatever, but it'll be interesting to kind of follow along and see what they're seeing and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, why don't we take a break? We'll come back, take a look at their defense, and we'll call it a day. Take a break. We'll be right back. All right. Working inside out as we tend to do. Their number 1 defensive tackle is Kobe Turner. Kobe Turner actually had a really good rookie outing. He's a 3rd-round pick out of Wake Forest. He was graded 10th overall with an 83.2 PFF grade. I don't even know who this man is, but apparently he was quite good last year. Not as much this year, although he did have an 86 run defense grade this past week. The previous weeks, it was 43, 44, and 67. Pass rush has been consistently in the 60s, although his stats are phenomenal. His tackling grades have been 28, 25, 29, and 30. His tackling is horrific. He actually has 6 missed tackles, and his missed tackle rate is 35%. With that said, however, he has no less than 3 pressures per game. He has 18 total pressures on 121 attempts. That is 15%. And I don't know how they're doing it, but they're able to get these guys some pressures. I don't know if it's scheme or what, but holy crap. But as far as the grades are concerned, very much meh. Number 2 defensive tackle is Braden Fisk, based off of the snap counts. 50, 54, 55, and then 91 against Chicago. Very unusual. I mean, he is a rookie 2nd-round pick, so we'll see how it goes out of Florida State. Run defense 61, 60, 40, and then 73. Pass rush 49, 47, 67, and then 90. So he just blew up as far as the grades are concerned. His pressures, 13 pressures on 97 attempts. That's 13.4%. That is fantastic. Now, maybe it's just Chicago has a crap offensive line. San Francisco has a crap, they've had some serious issues on their offensive line, especially on the interior. Arizona has some problems and a quarterback that likes to scramble around a lot. Detroit has a good offensive line, but he only had 1 pressure in that game. I don't know, but I'm just saying the numbers are great, even if the grades aren't necessarily. Overall, 65 PFF grade, 58 run defense, 30 tackling, 65 pass rush. And then finally, their number 3, they got some other guys that rotate, but Bobby Brown, who is a 4th-round pick in 2021, he is their 324-pounder. He has got a 60 grade, 60 run defense, 57 pass rush, 1 pressure on 52 attempts. That's what I want to see from my nose tackle. Dang it. Mediocre run defender with no pass rush abilities. That's a real nose tackle right there. You're just kind of there, you know? Then off the edge, they've got 3 main pass rushers. Number 1 is Byron Young. He has a 60 grade, 53 run defense, 48 tackling. Tackling is terrible. 73 pass rush. But even that is really just based on one game. It's been 50-50, 90-60. Still, the pressures are there. 11 pressures on 84 attempts. 11 divided by 84, 13%. That's really good. Bad football player, bad grades, but the stats are there. Then you got the frickin' monster Jared Verse. Jared Verse does not have bad grades, although his tackling is horrific. 27 tackling grade. But he has a 77 grade, 73 run defense, 73 pass rush, 17 pressures. 17 pressures on 83 attempts. That is 20.5% pressure rate. Now, he only has 1 sack, and interestingly enough, really none of these guys have a lot of sacks. Maybe 1 for each. So it's very weird that they're generating some kind of pressure but not getting sacks. And again, it really feels to me like a team that generates pressure, but the coverage is bad. And so it's one of the complaints I've had about the Packers is when we generate pressure, there's always somebody just standing there wide open. Now, if that is the case and if that remains, I think Jordan is the kind of guy who's going to find it. He's the kind of guy that's locked in. He knows where his eyes need to be, and he gets the ball out. But still, 20.5% pressure rate for rookie Jared Verse. My goodness, that's crazy. And then the third guy is Michael Haught. I don't know how you say this freaking guy's name. I want him out of the NFL so bad. His face looks stupid, and his last name is ridiculous. Sounds like I'm hawking a loogie. 63 grade, 58 run defense, 63 pass rush, 3 pressures on 52 attempts. Get a life. At linebacker, he got Troy Reeder. I had thought at one point that he was not going to be in the game, but I don't see any problems with Troy Reeder. So Troy Reeder is their top linebacker. He's 30 years old. He was an undrafted free agent in 2019, which feels like he shouldn't be 30 years old if you were drafted in 2019, but that's okay. 57, call it a 60 PFF grade, 60 run defense, 47 pass rush, 58 coverage. And to be fair, I mean, he's up from last year. He's been a pretty bad linebacker. He had 1 year for the Chargers, and he was good. It's hilarious. So he was bad for the LA Rams for 3 years. They're like, get out of my face. Chargers get him, and he's like really good in coverage. And then they let him go, and the Rams are like, hey, why don't you come on back here? Looks like you figured some stuff out. He went right back to being bad again. So he's actually playing better now than he usually does, so not a lot to expect there from Mr. Troy Reeder. Then you have Christian Roseboom, who is an undrafted free agent in 2020 out of South Dakota. He has a 48 PFF grade, 46 run defense, 52 pass rush, 58 coverage, and he's playing just as well as he did last year, almost exactly the same. So they have terrible linebackers. So none of the defensive front really grades out very well, but they have high pressure rates. Aside from Jared Verse, he grades out just fine. Linebackers, terrible at everything. Then we go out to the corners, and I don't know if you want to say it's all bad or what, but if you're looking for like matchups, I don't usually do matchups, but this is one that I've seen people talk about. Jaden Reed versus Quentin Lake. Quentin Lake is a safety / slot corner. He is, I presume, the slot corner. He has a 59 grade. He has a 53 coverage grade. Now, strangely, he's had 2 good games and 2 horrific games. His good games were against Detroit and Chicago. His terrible games are Arizona and San Francisco. 73, 39, 38, 79. Again, that comes out to 53.6, which is a little lower than average, but his highest grade was last year. It was really his only year starting. He had a 66 grade, so it's whatever. But he's given up on 15 targets, 10 receptions for 168 yards, no touchdowns, interceptions, or pass breakups, 104.3 passer rating when targeted. So that's their slot guy. On the outside, there is a very well-known name, Tre'Davious White. Tre'Davious White has been overrated since forever. He was hyped up when he got drafted in 2017. It was a very good year for corners. And so he went to Buffalo, had an incredible rookie year, and from that time on, he was seen as an elite corner. And he just never really was again. He had 1 good year in 2019. That was it. It's been several years since 2019. He is off to the worst start of his entire career since leaving Buffalo. His lowest grade was in 2022. He had a 59 PFF grade. He's currently at a 50. His grades over 4 weeks with the LA Rams, 52, 45, 61, 53. His coverage grades, 46, 53, 61, 50. Overall, 49 coverage grade right now. He has been targeted 13 times. He's given up 9 receptions for 151 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 2 pass breakups, 147.8 when targeted. Man, would it be nice to have our top guys back. But I'll tell you what, if Wicks is going to have a day, let this be the day. This is a very beatable corner. He is just not good at football right now. He was great as a rookie. He was okay for most of the rest of his career. And now at almost 30 years old, it seems like the dude is just cooked. Then they have Kobe Durant, who was a 4th-round pick. Seemed to have an okay rookie year, although he didn't really start. Year 2, he got more responsibility, kind of starter-esque. 57 grade, 54 coverage. So far this year, 52 overall defensive grade, 51 tackling, 46 coverage. He had a good week 1, 83 overall, 81 coverage. And then his coverage grades went to 47, 41, 38. 16 targets, 9 receptions, 82 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, 1 pass breakup, 70.3 passer rating. The stats are not terrible, but the guy, according to PFF, is just getting cooked left and right. The corners are unbelievably terrible, and that is a major problem. And when you look at how bad the corners and the linebackers are, it makes sense that you got guys like Verse and Young and Turner that are generating pressure, but there's not enough time to actually convert those pressures. Remember, pressures and sacks are almost entirely a function of time. There is a certain amount of time that it takes for certain pass rushers to get to the quarterback. If you're Joey Bosa, that time might be 2.3 seconds. If you're Rashawn Gary, it might be 4.5 seconds. Sorry, Rashawn, you brought that on yourself. That's the one variable. The other variable is how long it takes before quarterbacks are able to find open guys against your coverage unit. You look at those two things side by side, and you can understand how much pressure, well, not even necessarily pressure, but pressures and sacks and hits and those kinds of things, that's where those stats come from. And so with that, I would expect this to not really even be a big Christian Watson type of game. I know Christian Watson's not playing, but you get what I'm saying. Not to say they won't occasionally try to take a deep shot, but if this defense's DNA is they can generate pressures, but they're not productive with it because the coverage units can't cover. This is Jaden Reed and Tavian Wicks, Tucker Kraft. A lot of underneath stuff. Perfect. And we got a speed guy that can absolutely spread this defense out even without Christian Watson, with Bo Melton. So Bo Melton still brings the speed, still forces the defense to spread out, and then we got a bunch of underneath demons that can do work against guys that are just bad at football. Fair enough. Then at safety, their top guy here is Cameron Curl. Cameron Curl is a 7th-round pick in 2020. If I remember correctly, his whole thing was like tackling, but he was with Washington for 4 years, and he had one good year in 2022. Aside from that, it hasn't been great. Washington, after his contract ran out, decided to let him go. LA picks him up. He is now their. I mean, that's how bad a shape they're in. And by the way, LA is the team that spent all the money to go all the way in, and they are absolutely falling apart. Nothing makes me more upset than the fact that they actually won the Super Bowl, because again, that is exactly a guy hitting on 20 and getting an ace. They went all in, and they had a bad football team. They were the worst playoff team in that whole thing, and they just sailed into the Super Bowl and frickin' won it, and it drives me crazy. Because what should have happened is they go all in, they lose because they're bad, and then they're in this mess. But whatever. Can't frickin' whatever. But I mean, that just shows you're in a bad spot when a guy who was a 7th-round pick who's not great gets dropped, and he is now your number 1 safety. John Johnson was top dog. He's actually a decent guy. I mean, he had a great week 1. He played in week 2 for maybe a half a game and then went out, which means Cam Kinchens, the 3rd-round pick out of Miami, rookie, guy that a lot of people were in on early. I think the more we learned about him, the less we liked him. I know I went all the way out by the time the draft rolled around on him. It's been a bad start for him. 43 overall grade. He played a couple snaps week 1, week 2, and then he's been a starter since week 3 and 4. but 43 overall grade, 51 run defense, 61 tackling, 50 coverage grade. He has, 5 targets, 5 receptions for 104 yards and a touchdown. To only be targeted 5 times and to have that much damage done, that's crazy. 5 targets, and you've given up 5 receptions, 104 and a touchdown, 158.3 passer rating when targeted. That's terrible. So again, you got Cameron Curl, who is basically your strong safety tackling type that's not great at that. Cam Kinchins is going to be your free safety, and he's terrible. The corners are bad. The linebackers are bad. The defensive front is generating pressures somehow, but they're grading out poorly. There's no wonder this is a team that ranks 31st and 32nd in almost every defensive metric you can find. And then again, on the flip side, you have a quarterback that can't hit his groove, playing behind an offensive line that can't stay healthy and can't block, throwing to wide receivers who are leftovers because their 2 top wide receivers have been injured, and a running back that generates nothing. That's who we're playing this week. I don't know. I don't know how to be more clear about how much this needs to be a win. I got a caller call in. I don't remember who it was. Forgive me, but basically said that this should be the get right game, right? It was a terrible situation to go against Minnesota, but this is a great situation. It's great for Kenny. It's great for our entire defensive line. It's great for the wide receivers that we have. It's great for Jordan. It's great for everybody. This is the game. You want to generate pressure. You want to get inside a guy's head. I mean, listen, how perfect is this? For our defense, an offensive line that can't block, and a quarterback that's throwing massive amounts of turnover-worthy plays against a defense that has nothing going for it. And by the way, I mentioned all the pressures. This is a defense that nobody can tackle. I don't know, maybe run it down their throat a bunch, see how that goes. I mean, it sucks when your defense can't tackle. It super sucks when your defense can't tackle against a guy that is a bulldozer. This is a guy who's made a career out of breaking tackles. This could not be a more, to be fair, the Rams right now are a perfect matchup for everybody, but this is a dream matchup. Not to mention, this is a team that the Packers beat. I think they're undefeated since 2020. Basically, since Matt LaFleur got here, he left the Rams. He went to Tennessee for a little while, but he was a Rams guy, and he came here and he just beats the crap out of McVay all the time. Like, that's just what he does. Like, Shanahan beats LaFleur, LaFleur beats McVay. That's just the way it goes. I don't know if McVay beats Shanahan. I have no idea what that relationship's like, but it would be nice to complete the triangle, but I don't know. Probably not. I just, listen, I don't want everybody to be over positive. I don't want the Packers to lose and for everybody to come back and be like, you said, but look, it is what it is. This team is bad. They're battered. They're beaten up. They can't get their footing. Nothing is going right. Nobody is playing well. You have to just obliterate this team. If you go in there and it's penalties and picks and fumbles and penalties and missed field goals and drop passes, this is an auto win. Okay? This is a team the Bears beat. This team made Caleb Williams look like a mediocre quarterback, which is what his grade was. Imagine how much you have to suck to make Caleb look mediocre. My Lord. Oh, I had to get a Bears jab in there. I had to. But you know how bad that's going to be if the Bears beat them and we lose to them? Ugh. All right. I'm going to get out of here. You guys have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.